So please repeat after me out loud. I go for refuge to the Buddha.
I
Go for refuge to the Buddha
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
And realize the great way.
and realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
I will penetrate the teachings
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
I will seek peace and happiness
for
the many
And transform this world into Buddha land unimpeded.
and transform this world into Buddha land unimpeded.
Me back to the ground. All right, so now we will chant the Heart Sutra together. I'm going to mute everybody though, just because yeah, the lag is real. But please chant along with me. Again, it's on page 13 of the fancy book, and also on the PDF printout. So. Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra. The Bodhisattva of great compassion, from the deep practice of Prajna Paramita, perceived the emptiness of all five skandhas and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Sariputra, form is no other than emptiness. Emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. Oh, Sariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind. No realm of sight, no realm of consciousness. No ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance. No old age or death, nor extinction of them. No suffering, no cause of suffering. No cease from suffering. No path to lead out of suffering. No knowledge, no attainment, no realization. For there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna paramita. Therefore her mind is free of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance there is no fear. Away from all perverted views, she reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know that the prajna paramita is the great Dharani, the radiant peerless mantram, the utmost supreme mantram, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna paramita. Kate, kate, para kate, para sangate, Bodhi swaha. Kate, kate, para kate, para sangate, Bodhi swaha. Kate, kate, para kate, para sangate, Bodhi swaha. Dhammaha prajna paramita hridaya sutra. All right. Everybody is unmuted. So let's go around and just check in. Hey, Goggle and Goghe, you're here. Yay, good to see you.
Haven't seen you in a long time.
I know, it's great.
We missed you very much.
Yeah, it's great to see everybody. It really is, as always in the morning. Great to see your faces. So we'll go around and just check in. Kosa, you want to kick us off and we'll get to everybody. How you doing? And then again, what the other thing that we do is if there was anything in the Heart Sutra that kind of just really caught your ear or resonated, you can go ahead and say that now too, or you can just generally check in. And then we have Jogam on deck with our Buddhas of past, present, and future verse, who will wrap it up and lead the discussion. So Kosa, good morning.
Good morning. I've had kind of a tough week, though not for any particular reason.
Mhm.
I'm having some work frustration. I have gotten in a good walk and a bike ride. My computer is fighting back at me, and all of the miscellaneous programs are also fighting back at me. I'll win.
There is no winning, you're losing. Yeah.
I have this 20-year-old calendar program on which are loaded literally hundreds of follow-up items, and you know, it's not supported, and the company that was behind it has been out of business for years, and it started acting up. So I have reluctantly been given in and have started using the calendar in Outlook, which puts me face to face with Microsoft. My sort of impotent revenge is that my password is "down with Microsoft."
Yeah. Yeah, I had a battle with Outlook this week as well, so solidarity. Noju, greetings to you in Cusco, Peru. And happy birthday, by the way. Noju had her 40th birthday 2 days ago. So, 2 days ago. And it was lovely. Yeah. You're muted, I think. Are you muted?
Yeah, I just turned it on.
Okay.
Yeah, it was my birthday and I turned 40. I thought I would be alone, but it's quite amazing because it's quite a strict quarantine and lockdown. But my friend, she lives up in the mountains, quite remotely away from Cusco. She got special permission from the mayor. I have no idea how, but she got special permission from the neighbor to travel for hours from her land. Taxis are not allowed. She had to hire a special authorized taxi and driver, and came down here and was like, you're coming. You don't have a choice. You're coming. And she bought a huge cake and made food, and we had a small gathering. And it really meant a lot because I thought I'd be alone in isolation. And it was really, I still don't know how quite to explain it. I was so grateful, and it was so meaningful and lovely. And also we just found out quarantine is extended for the 5th time yet again until the end of June now. So until June 30th. So it was a lot. It was my 40th birthday and quarantine extension all happening. So yeah. But I feel like I'm moving into a different part of quarantine. I feel, this has been months now. So I feel like there's a separate kind of acceptance, and coming into the rhythm of this. Yeah. Thank you. It's lovely to be together with Sangha now.
Absolutely. And I think that is Sunita. Sunita, how you doing? Can you hear me? Thanks, Sunita. It looks like a starfish, his ceiling fan. So I'm just gonna maybe we'll pass on Sunita and his starfish ceiling fan. I don't know where he is. Sunbung, morning.
Morning. Nice to see everyone. I'm doing well. I mentioned last week that my cousin was in the hospital battling coronavirus, and so he's had a really great recovery. He was in ICU, but this week or last week they administered plasma, and like 2 days later he was on the upswing, and now he's actually out of the hospital and in a care facility for a while. But so that's really great news. And yeah, just kind of like Noju said, getting into the flow of this. And I think now it's going to be strange going back to the normal life whenever that happens. Thank you.
Chris Lynch.
Hi, nice to join you. I've wanted to join you all at this meeting for a long time, finally able to. Doing well, I've been enjoying morning practice and sometimes evening practice, and sort of struggling with employment insecurity, but practice is helping a lot with that. But looking forward to hearing how this goes today.
Good to see you. Nadeji, good morning.
Good morning. I'm so grateful to be able to join my Sangha, my Chicago Sangha from afar. I've had sort of a difficult week medically, physically. I've had some falls this week, and I'm going to be getting an infusion on Wednesday. So it's medication which I had canceled before because it lowers my resistance, and it's an autoimmune kind of program. It's very strong. It's like a 7-hour infusion at the local cancer center. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm grateful. And I'm looking forward to maybe feeling a little better. So generally, I'm grateful. A question that has arisen for me, because we're a little ahead of Illinois for some good reasons in terms of beginning to open up. And that idea of what it means to be kind of at risk again for contagion is a little scary and worrisome for me, particularly because of my physical condition and chronic illness. And so it's just kind of trying to think about how life continues and what that will look like, and there is no knowing what that will look like. So just some things that I'm pondering and will take on as it comes. Thank you.
Thank you. Guggle and Gughe, good morning and welcome.
Hello.
Yeah, I can tell you're technologically adept. You work that mute button really well. So, how are you guys doing?
We've been good. We've been on Zoom quite a bit for work and for friends, and I'm glad that we can do that here with the family. We're at our family's place right now.
Yeah, so all the kitchen noises you're hearing has been my mother.
And the little dog that's come around to check in on us occasionally.
Hi, Kitty.
Exactly.
We've been good. I guess we haven't seen you guys in probably 6 months.
Yes, it's been quite a time.
Yeah. I was telling Aurora, thank you for emailing us. We had no idea you were meeting virtually. So, otherwise, we have joined you 4 months ago. But we were in France when the pandemic started out, and I should be there. I was supposed to be there right now for work, but it's very interesting because as the pandemic happened, my sister, who's also in France, we're all back here in my mother's home, trying to work, trying to study, and we've been doing a lot of gardening, puzzles too.
Yes.
Things have been good. I would say, like, we're very fortunate, and none of us are experiencing like many of the health problems that people are right now. Not all my friends can say the same. So I'm just keeping them in mind during this time too.
Thank you.
Well, I'll call on Gog because since we're in a Gog role here. Yeah.
Well, this has been a hard week because one of my best buddies went in for surgery to have cancer removed. And they opened him up and decided it was inoperative, sewn him back up again. And things are hard about it. One is that he has no good treatment options. The other is it was very, very difficult the day of the surgery for him. He was suffering a lot on the day after. So it's been a difficult week. But he is he's feeling better right at the moment, and the future will be what it is. And that's been my week.
Good morning.
Hi. I'm doing well, actually, this week as opposed to other weeks. Although I'm dealing with lawyers and, no offense to the lawyers out there, but I'm just had an offer accepted on a condo. So now I'm moving to the high bank of the river. So I'll be able to survey the devastation when the rains hit again from a safer spot, I guess. But because, I'm right off the Des Plaines River now, pretty much. I'm in the floodplain. And the condo I found is on the other side of the river that doesn't quite get as much flooding, or at least when I tried to go to work on Monday during the heavy rain, I was detoured right past the new property. So I know that that's in the high-lying ground. So that's one good thing. So now I'll have to, in the next month or so, be dealing with moving during a pandemic. So that ought to be an interesting exercise. So anyhow, that's pretty much all I have for update.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Soyok, good morning.
Good morning. Hi, everybody. Been catching you guys the past couple of weeks on the YouTube, so good to be back with you in person. Things are good for me. My practice is good every morning, and I'm really enjoying long walks every day. I know that's probably going to end at some point when my place of work opens up again, which is causing some tension now for a lot of folks because we're working towards, I work in a library, and we're working, not Chicago Public Library, but a suburban library, and we're working towards resuming some services starting like June 8th, I think. So it's causing a lot of anxiety for folks, how we're going to do things, work together as a staff. And so it's some stress dealing with that. But otherwise, I'm really well. So it's good to be with you guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Lamsu. Picasso.
Good morning. It's nice to see everybody. I think I'm doing okay. A lot of work stress and instability. I don't know. I just keep tracking how this experience keeps changing. I think this has been a really internalized week for me. That's both good and disturbing. Yeah, I need to start working with Oche because my practice is not very good. But generally, I feel pretty positive and good. It's really wonderful to have warm weather and the motorcycle is out. So yeah, so things are okay, but odd, which is just the way it is.
Okay, but yeah. Good, thanks. I'm going to circle back to Sunita and the starfish ceiling fan. Can you hear me, Sunita? I see him. I think I see his ear. Okay. You can use the chat function maybe. In the meantime, I'll chat with, how about Sushan Bob?
Good morning.
Oh, there he is.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, you know, it was also kind of a week hearing Gakta talk about his friend's illness. I had a guy I've worked for like 10 years now, going for open heart surgery, but sounds like he's going to be okay. My uncle passed away I think it was 2 weeks ago, but the services were last week. He was 89 years old, so it wasn't like exactly a big shock, but and he'd been suffering from dementia for a number of years. But you know, it was really difficult because I read a newspaper article about the funeral and talked to my parents about the services. He was known in the aviation industry. He was a flight simulator innovator, and so he had a funeral, had he been able to have one, it would have been probably pretty big. But I really missed. I got the sense that if he did have one, it would have been kind of a really great family reunion, because I have a lot of cousins on that side and aunts and uncles that I don't get to see that much. And so I was really kind of missing that. I was very moved because people down in Champaign had pulled their planes, so these single engine planes along the highway, you know, in tribute. And I think they had like a procession through there, which was very moving. And I was talking to my parents, and we just had a really nice conversation, just remembering things about Rudy and what a character and everything. So that was, you know, it was just a different way to kind of celebrate or mark his passing. Yeah, and this is usually a weekend for me where I'm, you know, it is that transition into summer, and it feels like it's going to be a very different kind of summer experience, you know. So that feels a little, I think when Samsu was saying if things feel a little bit odd, I guess I can relate, you know. But the line in the Heart Sutra that stuck out with me, the Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna paramita. So really, lately I've been thinking about things that I have been holding on to and working to let go of judgments, sometimes opinions, and just reading that really, really resonated. So that was helpful.
Sunita, can you hear us? Would you like to check in and let us know how you're doing? I can see you now. I don't know if you can hear me. 3, 2. Okay, Oche. Up. Is that us, Sunita?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
There was a red microphone in the corner. Yikes.
Yes. Yeah.
Jim's dying. He's got a tube hanging out of his lung, and they took 2 liters of fluid out, and he just told me he probably isn't going to make a year. So the next orange I eat will taste really good. You know, the transientness of life is real right now, and that supplants all the other shit, because this is life, death.
Thanks. Oche?
Well, I'm fortunate. Everything has been great at the temple. It rained last night, and there weren't any substantive leaks, which is always good. Kosa, you understand. And I've been thinking a lot this, for whatever reason, it seems like within our Sangha, there were a lot of people who either directly were suffering with illness or undergoing surgeries. So my thoughts were with them a lot of the week. And then also, I finished my school year, so summer has really begun. So now I have really, amidst quarantine, no excuses for all the things I've been putting off. So I'm looking forward to attending to them. And I'm really grateful to all the people who have been participating in virtual meditation, because they really have been inspiring my practice. And I'm grateful to Samsu. He introduced me to some online games that are enabling me to reconnect with some friends and their children, because they're games that my son can play, and also that we've played with my parents. So that's been really nice. And the line in the Heart Sutra, I think because I'm looking forward to Jogam's presentation, that stood out was all Buddhas of past, present, and future through faith and prajna paramita attained to the highest perfect enlightenment.
Yeah. Thank you all. I'll check in and I'll be brief, and then we'll end with Jogam, who's doing our presentation. But yeah, just listening to, it was a heavy week here. I don't know if anybody knows Evanston really well, but a pillar of the community, and a really amazing human being, kind of the unofficial king of Evanston, Hecky Powell, who really devoted his life to especially African-American boys and men, and also made amazing barbecue. But he died of the coronavirus, I think, on Thursday, and it was just shocking, right? And a reminder, really, as Sunita said, of sort of what the stakes are here. And this is also the time of the year where I'm usually on a plane or on a plane that's landing in France for my annual trip to France, which I started going every year after my friend got sick, and then kept it up. And so I'm just thinking a lot about, and just listening to all of you and seeing your wonderful faces. And I'm just thinking that, I think the wonderful thing about Buddhism is it really gives us the space to be creative, and to come at things in different directions. And we have a cat showdown going on, so you may hear some growling and hissing. I was going to say, like, creative and how do we love each other creatively during this time, right? I just am so moved by Noju's story and by Samsu, sending the games to Oche and to some of the things Nadeji said. And so just kind of asking ourselves in this time, right, how can we love each other? I think we're all grieving that the sort of habitual ways that we express love and that we see people are not available now. And so so even just having online meetings like this is sort of a new way. But yeah, and anyway, and just thinking, so there's a conference. I was having a conference. I was going to host a conference in my field in October of this year and postpone it to next year. I think with the news of Hecky and just the water rising kind of, and more and more people affected, and just thinking, I think originally it was just like, oh, we'll just have the conference next year. And then just really having it sink in that some people might not be here next year, and some people may not have jobs next year, and some institutions won't exist next year. And just trying to be very, a little bit like water, and adjusting to what's going on and not holding on to the way things used to be, which is really a big challenge. I mean, it sounds really pretty in the Heart Sutra, but it's really hard to do. So that's sort of where I am. So, and Jogam, if you'd like to check in, and then the floor is yours, the metaphorical floor.
It's interesting.
I can't hear you well. You're not muted, but I think you're.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just my microphone. So it's interesting. When I had first expressed that this passage had resonated with me, the original reason was that it resonated, that what had hit me or what had struck me was just this notion of past, present, and future, that Buddhas are always there and that we're all Buddhas. And so with that being said, I think that as I was studying it during the week, and as I was studying it during the week, and as I was going through the week, and all of the things that we all go through with the coronavirus, it made me. I started taking a very different take on it, and the take was this notion of time, past, present, and future, and realizing that a lot of certainly my frustration that comes from dealing with the pandemic is being very attached to time, being very attached to notions of, in the past it was this way, in the future it was supposed to be that way, so on and so forth. And that the concept of linearity of time is what led to a lot of frustration for me, and has led to a lot of frustration for me, instead of releasing it and simply being in the moment as much as possible. Obviously much easier said than done when we're dealing with friends who are dying or have died, or that life is death, death is life. These are all easy things to say. But that being said, I just started to realize as I was preparing for my presentation that there's a whole other side to this notion of past, present, and future Buddhas. When I looked through some of the commentaries, and what they had to say on this notion as well, from Thich Nhat Hanh, one of the things he pointed out was, once the wave realizes that it is only water, that it is nothing but water, it realizes that birth and death cannot do it harm. It has transcended all kinds of fear, and perfect nirvana is the state of non-fear. You are liberated. You are no longer subject to birth and death, defilement and immaculateness. You are free from all that. And one of the things that was interesting was, I felt Thich Nhat Hanh's choice of the notion of a wave, because what is a wave? It's an up and down through time, okay? And that the water exists independent of the wave. We all exist independent of the wave. We all exist independent of time, which I found very compelling as I was going through this. And so that being said, then looking at Red Pine, and he cites Chen Ko and saying that Buddhas and ordinary people aren't really different. Buddhas are simply people who are free of birth and death, love and hate, while ordinary people aren't free of birth or death, love or hate. And so again, there's this idea of being free of, because, what is time, or what is birth and death other than the measuring of time in the most existential way? And so what we as Buddhists are always trying to focus on is or trying to achieve is our freedom from that. And so so as the week went on, I was just trying to stay focused on that and not try to come up with answers, but if I look at what we're all going through, what I'm going through in the pandemic in terms of liberating ourselves from the concept of time, does that give a different perspective? And then from there, going from that to, once you do that, then the next day, and realize unexcelled perfect enlightenment. And there's a wonderful
I'm not sure how to pronounce it, if it's Hakuin or Hakuin, or that he had very wonderful commentaries, and they were very funny. And one of the things that he said about what that means of the perfect enlightenment is, stop hammering spikes into empty space. A steer may give birth to a calf, but no Buddha was ever enlightened by relying on wisdom. Why? Because wisdom and enlightenment are essentially not two. Because if he has anything left to get, he is no Buddha. So again, it's this notion of absence or emptiness that is brought in early on in the Heart Sutra, come back full circle, in the sense of there being no inherent meaning on its own, or standing alone, and that there's nothing to have, or there's nothing to get, or there's nothing to have dependency upon, that this enlightenment is simply there. And Red Pine points out from Hui Chung, if you believe in this unsurpassed true Tao, your mind is already the Buddha. Thus it says they realize unexcelled perfect enlightenment. So essentially saying, you know, it's already there. There's nothing to get. It's just a question of liberating it. And so in summation, really what I felt it was saying to me was that a big key to all of this is trying to liberate ourselves from this notion of time. And from time comes much suffering. And it ain't easy, goodness knows. But it's something that I've stayed focused on this week, just in the context of the pandemic. And it's been surprising, because like I said, I started with a certain notion of being attracted to this passage by buying into this notion of time. And, you know, but once you dig into the details, it's, you know, no, that's not it, actually, it's this. So, you know, the teacher's a trickster, you know, the teacher kind of brings you in, gets you thinking one thing, then once you get in it, you know, it's this is really what it means. So from that standpoint, it was, yeah, it was very valuable. So yeah, happy to hear what others have to say.
Thank you so much for that. And I love what you described at the end, because I'm reading or fiddling around with the Avatamsaka Sutra right now, and really essential to it is that's the way the Buddha works. Is it's almost like a whole bunch of Venus flytraps, or, you know, these kind of things that you're like, oh, this looks good, and then you fall into it. Like, it's all these infinity of skillful means, whatever will actually resonate with somebody, to use that to kind of draw them in, and then spring the truth on them in different paths. So I just think that was a lovely description. And then the only other thing that really occurred to me while you were talking about liberating ourselves from time is, you know, when Sushima and I and Oche, when we teach the meditation class, right, and this idea of the 3 foundation stones, and in this very moment, right, there's always something to be grateful for, right? There's nothing to worry about, there's nothing lacking. But we like to say the most important part of that sentence is the in this very moment part, right? Like the bright shiny thing is the thing that changes, is the contentment, peace, and gratitude. But the in this very moment, which is a really powerful invitation to liberate ourselves from past, present, and future, which is what I hear you saying. And
yes,
that's where the plenitude happens, is if we can actually slip out of the spider web of time.
And to sort of slice that infinitely thinner and thinner and thinner. Yeah.
That's right. I always think of a deli slicer,
Yeah.
very not Buddhist at all. So slicing tofu, really, really. Yeah, any other comments or observations? The floor is open. Thank you for that, Jogan. It was beautiful.
I've left them stupefied. So.
I know, right, that's right.
I'll be here all week. Don't forget to tip your waitress. So.
Well, first of all, thank you again for the talk on those lines. And yeah, the lines really are about, seem to me about time. And I think one of the things that really attracted me to Buddhism is present in these lines, which is that from the first, even in the oldest sutras, that it was not just the Buddha, the historical Buddha, that there were hundreds, thousands of billions of Buddhas over countless eons before, and that really sort of set the stage for this idea that we can all become Buddhas, that it's not this just personal journey of reducing passions and escaping birth and death, that the highest ideal of Buddhism is not just within our reach, but it's sort of our destinies or our nature. And as you said, Jogam, that there's nothing that separates us from Buddhas other than that we have to learn. And I've always found that sort of sentiment very inspiring, that we all will attain Buddhahood.
I was reading an article this week about the passage of time, and I found it really fascinating. I didn't particularly like the way the article handled the topic, but the reporter was interviewing a philosopher of time, and so I started reading a book, A Brief History of the Philosophy of Time. And it's a curious, I don't know, endeavor to try to talk about time. But the central ideas of what he presented to the reporter was how our perceptions of time change and shift. And he focused on the idea of when we are in some kind of flow, we are externalized. We are engaged in that external engagement, whether it's work or family, or for me, very often painting. And our energies turn outward. And so our perceptions of time then get attached to the thing that we are doing. And then sort of the opposite of that is the shifting into rumination, where we are so internalized that we can't quite track what time is like. So they were trying to explain why March seemed like it went by very, very quickly, and then April seemed to kind of go by quickly, but at the same time, we couldn't quite identify what occurred. And he was explaining that, like, as we turned more and more internally into April, our ability to perceive what occurred from one day to the next becomes more blurred because the focus is so internalized. And I'm always fascinated by the experience of time inside of retreat, because it begins with, for me, a sense of like, I'm going to do this. And the second, third day, that churning with external pieces. And by the end, it's like, wow, all of this is going by so quickly, right? And so that our ability to engage in the perception of time, and over again in the Heart Sutra, it's looking at this idea of emptiness, right? That through identifying that, like, time in a way is actually empty, we can begin to sort of understand how we can move into a sense of faith. And I think that the second line, through faith in Prajnaparamita, is really important to focus on, because it asks us, we don't talk a lot about faith, but my meditation practice always brings me back to the idea of I don't know. And to have faith in the idea that I do not know past, because past is not part of my experience, it's a mental construct. And that the future is also not something that I can understand, that it is something that I do not know. It is a mental construct of what I believe may occur. And so the only way that I can truly sort of come to some kind of place of ease, I don't want to use the word enlightenment, is to sit in that space of emptiness and that lack of knowing, and give up the struggle to define my concepts of time.
Can I share something? Because what Samsu just said, let me try to find it. I was listening to a podcast. There's a podcast called This American Life, which I love and I listen to. And
Ira Glass, yeah.
So I actually wrote it because I thought it was so beautiful. There's a section, there was this 9-year-old little girl, and she just wrote down a series of questions for her father to answer. And one of the questions this 9-year-old wrote was, what is time and why? And so this is what he wrote. A father explaining time to his 9-year-old daughter. This is what he wrote. In one of my favorite stories by a guy named William Faulkner, there's a daddy who gives his kid a watch. And he says, I give you this watch, not that you might remember time, but so that you might forget it for a little while. I can only tell you that time is me, turning and turning, while the world is turning around a star that turns around a center, that turns around the whole time. And among all the other things, the little turning animals and all the little turning worlds, there is me trying to turn to you. Yeah. And I think about that, past, present, future, that, everything that we do, it's affected by our ancestors. It will affect the next generation to come, that there's always, I don't know the word, like a continuation, I guess, So there's no increase or decrease, right? That it's there and it's maintained, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, I have a couple of thoughts on this idea of time. This past week, I guess, or maybe it was last week, was the 22nd anniversary of me taking the precepts. And there was something that happened that morning of the precept taking ceremony way back then with my my oldest niece, who back then was 5 and now she's in her late 20s. So she would be about 27 now. It's like I've always been the more philosophical of between me and my brother. My brother's been the more pragmatic businessman type. And so he had told, apparently she had asked him this series of questions, and my brother told her, well, go ask your Uncle Bob. He's a lot better with those. So she came up to me like the day of the precept taking ceremony before the whole festivity happened. And she's like, Uncle Bob. And she, you know, told me that, you know, that, okay, here I have these questions. She starts off with, okay, there's 24 hours in a day, right? I'm like, yeah, okay. 60 minutes in every hour, yeah. 60 seconds in every minute, right? Yeah. He goes, how many moments in a second?
Mm.
And luckily that day I had like been concentrating a lot on some Thich Nhat Hanh. So I actually, you know, it may not have been the right answer, but it was the right answer for that particular moment. But I basically said, there's just the present moment.
Mm.
And actually just this morning I was, or I think it was either this morning or yesterday, I was talking with a friend and or basically texting back and forth, and kind of was talking about time and history and all that. And I remembered a quote from George Bernard Shaw that is, history doesn't repeat itself, man does.
Mm.
So it's like when in the presentation today, when he said it was, you know, that the teacher is a trickster, it's kind of like a 3-card Monte, and we may think history is repeating itself, like with the, you know, with the Spanish flu epidemic versus today. But the reality is we're making the same mistakes we did back then.
I think
So
it was,
it's not history repeating itself, it's us.
I think it was Mark Twain who said history does not repeat itself, but it often rhymes.
Oh,
Ah,
yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's very, you know, to me, there's that thing of keep your eye on, you know, I think of it like 3-card Monte. Keep your eye on the queen. Keep your eye on the queen. Where's the queen? You know? And it's like, keep your eye on what's really happening, not what you think is happening.
And
I guess that's the key to that whole thing of living in the present moment.
I also think, though, I love that. Thank you. And this is really helping me. And like I think I said on Facebook, I've started torturing myself by looking at my memories, right? Like a year ago, where was I? 3 years ago, was I? But I think this present moment, I think Buddhism also gives us a way, and I think Buddhism is probably trying to talk about this, of seeing the present moment. And when you see the present moment, to actually also be able to see all of the streams and threads and filaments that layer, right? And that's what I find myself being so moved by, is here I am at this present moment, and there's this thread that's where I was in France last year, and this person that I know, and you know, so having it not be, I think, and I'm speaking for myself, I think I always thought of just the present moment as very like thin and reductive, of trying to shrink everything, right, just to now. But, and I think this might be coming from the trippy Avatamsaka Sutra, but, and Suna once tried to tell me something like this, like each moment contains infinite moments, and each of those moments contains infinite moments. And so that there's this just richness, actually, like the present moment is the slice, but you can sort of see all of the things that have flowed in to make it what it is. Which is monumentally beautiful, and it leaves room for grief, right? That when one of those threads is broken, or when we're concerned for people, right? It's not just like, hey, I'm in the moment and take your stuff and go somewhere else. I don't know if that makes any kind of sense, but this is being a really helpful thing for me to think about this morning. So I'm just really super grateful to everybody. Any other, I think we have time for another.
I wanted to connect to that because there's, I think it's called Chef's Table on Netflix, not that I'm promoting it. But Kunaka had told me to go and look at this particular show because a Korean monk, nun, she is this amazing cook, and the short version is that she talked about cultivating soy sauce, and I had no idea that soy sauce was such a complex, interesting subject. And she had this huge vat of soy sauce that she cultivates, and she talked about how much she loves cultivating soy sauce because the container is about 100 years old. And so as she works with it and as she uses it, she is connecting to the Buddhas that have come before her. And that as she does the work with the soy sauce today, she's creating something that will be used by future Buddhas. And so to physically engage in something that passes through time then connects us as individuals and as Buddhas.
That's lovely. Oh, wow. So I know we have the precept. Is the precept group meeting today, Sushan, at noon or? Okay, yeah. So we'll leave time for that. But I don't know about you. I'm all kinds of. My mind is a little bit blown, and I'm all warm and fuzzy and goosebumpy and tears in my eyes and full of appreciation and gratitude for all of you and everything that you've said. Thank you all so much. And we're edging up on the gate, which we could spend a month on, which we may, because we might all be here. But would anybody, Sushan Ba, would you like to do the next like little verse, the great Dharani, the Radiant Purulent Mantra next week? That would be lovely. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that Oche and Sabaha have started the advantage of having Sabaha, we're importing some Ann Arbor practices. So apparently on Thursday morning for their Thursday morning practice at 6 in the morning, instead of reading the morning prayer, they read a dedication of merit thing that they sent me. It's quite lovely. And then it's a little bit like our family service, you know, that we do once a month where they read just like a one sentence thing about people in the Sangha who are suffering or who had surgery or who are having treatments or friends of people in the Sangha or pets who have passed, or, you know, just a list of any kind of dedications that would be and listening to everybody this month. I think there's I think this is just a really beautiful, useful practice. And of course you're welcome to join them again on the channels for any 6 a.m., 11:45 and 6:30 p.m. But Thursday mornings they would read these dedications. So I would just encourage everybody, if you have something that you'd like on that list, and number one, to try to join them for practice on Thursday morning at 6 a.m. But to go ahead and email the temple with your dedication, and it'll get on that list, and those will be read on Thursday mornings. So yeah, so here we go. So once again, it's just lovely to see all of you. And so we'll end with the 4 great vows and then see everybody here 10:30 next week. And then if you are interested in taking precepts, join Sushum, I think on this channel, but I'll log off and then he'll log in. With
it's different ID, but it is the same account.
Exactly, but I'll end this meeting and then you can log anyway. So all beings, one body, I vow to line passion, one root. I vow to
terminate.
Dharma gates.
Dharma gates.
I vow
to penetrate. the great way of Buddha, I vow to realize.
You all so much, and enjoy the moment and in all of its directions. So it's lovely to see you.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
You too.
You too.
Yes, happy, yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I love seeing you all.
Good to see you, and welcome Gago and Gage. Thank you for joining us.